Sir, we've had too many fake disability claims. Can you prove you actually need that leg? Danny Torres froze, coffee cup halfway to his lips. Excuse me? Sarah Mitchell stepped forward, coffee pot trembling. Kevin Walsh raised his phone camera. Corporate fraud investigation. This diner's been flagged for suspicious military discount activity. Click, flash, evidence collected. Sir, please. Danny's voice cracked. Don't sir me. Walsh circled the table like a predator. Benefits fraud is a federal crime. That prosthetic looks awfully convenient for discount hunting. The hometown diner went dead silent. 4 veterans at separate tables looked up from their breakfast, recognizing the sound of a brother under attack. Walsh zoomed his camera closer. Lot of people fake disabilities these days for free meals. Danny's weathered hand moved protectively over the painted eagle, the one his 6-year-old daughter had spent 3 weeks perfecting, little bit each evening after homework. That's enough. Sarah's voice cut like steel. Walsh smirked. Ma'am, step back. You're interfering with an official audit, and you're harassing a decorated veteran. That's when Sarah said the words that would cost her everything. Tay, if you believe no veteran should be disrespected like this, type honor below. Your voice matters more than you think. Those names are real soldiers who died for this country. Sarah's voice cut through the morning air like shattered glass. She moved between Walsh and Danny, her body language shifting into protective mode. The same stance she'd taken at her husband's funeral when strangers tried to photograph her grief. Walsh circled the table like a predator. Ma'am, step back. Corporate policy requires verification of all disability benefit claims. Verification? Sarah's voice rose. He's been coming here for 2 years. Every Saturday, 6 a.m. sharp, for the Rolling Thunder breakfast. Danny tried to stand, the prosthetic making its familiar mechanical click against the floor. Sarah, don't... No. Her wedding ring caught the fluorescent light as she gripped the coffee pot tighter. You sit, you finish your breakfast. Walsh pulled out official corporate documentation. This establishment receives significant tax benefits for military discounts. Fraudulent disability claims constitute federal crimes. You're calling him a criminal? Sarah's voice dropped to a whisper that somehow carried more power than shouting. I'm calling it suspicious when someone that young has a convenient amputation for free meals. Walsh's phone kept clicking photos. Documentation, evidence, corporate ammunition. Outside, gravel crunched under heavy tires as an F-150 pickup pulled into the lot. The front door chimed with mechanical cheerfulness as Patricia Crane entered. Regional Director of Operations, steel gray suit, expression that could freeze blood. Her timing wasn't coincidental. Walsh had texted her the moment he'd spotted what corporate called a liability situation. Ms. Mitchell. Patricia's voice carried the authority of 15 years climbing corporate ladders. Step away from the customer immediately. He's not a customer, Sarah replied, her voice steady as granite. He's a hero eating breakfast. Patricia's smile was surgical. He's a potential fraud case interfering with our audit process. She gestured to Walsh. Document this insubordination. Danny's prosthetic scraped against the floor as he tried to rise. I should leave. You should stay, Sarah said firmly, her hand gently pressing his shoulder back down. This is your corner, your table, your home. Walsh stepped closer, phone camera focused on the prosthetic. A lot of people fake disabilities these days. Military amputations are especially popular for sympathy benefits. My daughter painted that eagle. Danny's voice was barely audible, but it stopped Walsh mid-sentence. She was 6. Took her 3 weeks, little bit each evening after her homework. Said eagles watch over soldiers who can't come home. Patricia checked her watch with theatrical impatience. Ms. Mitchell, you have 30 seconds to comply with corporate policy and remove this potential fraud case or what? Sarah's voice was diamond hard now. You'll fire me for serving coffee to a man who lost his leg in Afghanistan? I'll fire you for enabling benefits fraud during an official audit. Patricia's tone was ice. Final warning. Sarah looked at Danny, really looked at him, at the careful way he balanced his weight, at the 8 names on his leg, At the eagle his little girl had painted with such love it seemed to breathe. At the empty coffee cup he'd been nursing for an hour because free refills meant he could stay longer. No. The word dropped into the silence like a stone into still water. I won't ask a wounded veteran to leave so you can take pictures of his prosthetic for your fraud investigation. Patricia's smile was victorious. Then you're terminated, effective immediately. She turned to Alex, the young server frozen behind the counter. Box her belongings. Security will escort her out. Sarah's hands trembled as she untied her apron. 3 years of 5 a.m. shifts, of learning veterans' coffee preferences, of hosting the Rolling Thunder breakfast that had become the most sacred 2 hours of her week. But sometimes honor costs everything you thought you needed to survive. Through the window, the F-150's door slammed with the solid thunk of American steel. The hometown diner felt like a church after a funeral, heavy with unsaid prayers and the weight of witnessing something sacred breaking apart. Sarah folded her apron with mechanical precision, each crease perfect, each movement controlled. Her husband Robert's photograph watched from the wall behind the register. Staff Sergeant Robert Mitchell, KIA Afghanistan, 2019. His smile frozen in the moment before his final deployment. Danny sat motionless in his booth, right hand moving unconsciously across the engraved names on his prosthetic. The gesture was barely visible, intimate as a prayer, but Sarah caught it from across the room. SSG Maria Santos. His finger paused. She'd been the squad leader, killed instantly by sniper fire. CPL Jake Williams, medic, died trying to reach the wounded. SPC Tommy Chen, 22 years old, engaged to be married. The roll call continued silently. 8 souls Danny carried forward because someone had to remember their names. Patricia was at the register now, reorganizing corporate compliance folders with aggressive efficiency. Walsh, finish documenting this location. I want a full report on every military discount claimed in the past 6 months. Alex wiped the same section of counter for the 4th time, his 19-year-old mind struggling to process what he'd witnessed. The other veterans in the diner, 3 older men scattered across separate booths, ate their breakfast in careful silence, recognizing the particular tension that comes when civilians make military service a topic of corporate policy. Sarah gathered her purse, car keys, the small framed photo of Robert she kept in her employee locker. The company would want her access codes, her keys to the supply room, her passwords to the ordering system. 3 years of building relationships with veterans reduced to an inventory checklist. But watching Danny trace those engraved names with such reverence, she understood something fundamental about honor. It wasn't a medal you earned once and displayed forever. It was a choice you made again and again, especially when the cost was everything you thought you needed. Outside, heavy footsteps approached the entrance. Measured, deliberate, the walk of someone accustomed to command. Danny looked up from his silent roll call, and recognition flickered across his weathered features like lightning. "Jesus," he whispered, so quietly only Sarah heard him. "General Crawford?" The front door opened, and with it came a presence that would rewrite the rules of engagement. General James Crawford entered the hometown diner like he was conducting a field inspection. At 62, his civilian clothes, pressed jeans, white button-down, worn leather boots, couldn't disguise 40 years of military bearing. His eyes swept the room with tactical precision. Exits, threats, objective. His objective was sitting in the corner booth, protecting 8 names with his bare hands. Danny Torres. The name carried across the diner like a command. Danny's spine straightened automatically, muscle memory overriding the prosthetic's limitations. "Sir," Danny's voice cracked slightly. Crawford moved through the space with deliberate slowness, taking inventory. The wall of honor, the scattered veterans trying to finish breakfast in peace, the young server standing frozen behind the counter. The corporate auditor with his phone camera still recording. "Helmand Province, 2019, Crawford said quietly, stopping beside Danny's table. "Forward Operating Base Chapman. You were convoy security for the medical evacuation." Danny's face went pale. "You remember." "I remember everything about that day." Crawford's voice dropped to a whisper that somehow carried more authority than shouting. Lead Humvee hit the IED first. Killed 3 instantly. Transport truck flipped. Caught fire. You were thrown clear. Patricia Crane found her corporate voice. Excuse me, sir, but we're conducting an official... Crawford held up one finger without looking at her. The gesture carried such absolute authority that she fell silent mid-sentence. Corporate training overridden by something primal that recognized real power. But you went back, Crawford continued, his eyes fixed on Danny's face. Twice! You went back twice into burning wreckage to pull wounded soldiers to safety. Anyone would have... No. Crawford's voice carried the weight of someone who'd written too many letters to Gold Star mothers. Most people would have stayed down. You saved Staff Sergeant Rodriguez and Corporal Kim that day. Cost you the leg, but you saved 2 mothers from getting folded flags at Arlington. The diner had gone completely silent. Even the jukebox seemed to hold its breath. Walsh shifted nervously, phone still recording. Sir, we're documenting potential benefits fraud. Crawford turned slowly, fixing Walsh with the stare that had once made Taliban commanders reconsider their tactical options. You're accusing this man of faking his amputation? Corporate policy requires verification of disability claims that seem questionable? I'm his verification. Crawford reached into his wallet, pulled out a business card thick as cardstock. General James Crawford, retired. Current CEO of Crawford Holdings. He placed the card on Danny's table with ceremonial precision, which owns 60% of this franchise region. Patricia's clipboard hit the floor with a plastic clatter. As of this moment, Crawford continued, his voice calm as winter morning, this diner is no longer part of the corporate franchise system. Patricia's voice came out strangled. You can't just... I can. And I am. Crawford pulled out his phone, speed-dialed a number. Legal department? Jim Crawford. I need immediate paperwork for franchise independence. Location? Hometown Diner, Camp Henderson Road. He paused, listening. Full independence. Effective immediately. He ended the call and looked around the room one more time, his gaze settling on Sarah, who stood in the back hallway still holding her folded apron. Ma'am, where were you planning to go? Sarah's voice was barely audible. Unemployment office, I guess. Crawford smiled, the first genuine warmth he'd shown since entering. Congratulations. You've just been promoted to owner-operator of an independent establishment. Danny Torres, holder of 2 Purple Hearts and guardian of 8 sacred names, started to cry. Not from shame, from recognition. Someone had finally seen him clearly. Sarah returned to find the diner transformed into something she'd never dared to imagine. Crawford and Danny sat across from each other like old soldiers sharing sacred ground, 2 coffee cups between them and 40 years of military history flowing in low, reverent tones. Walsh was gone, disappeared like morning mist when real authority arrived. Patricia stood by the door, car keys in hand, looking like someone who'd just discovered her power had boundaries she'd never tested. Ms. Mitchell! Crawford stood as Sarah approached, extending his hand with formal respect. Welcome back to your restaurant. Sarah looked around, confused. The same red vinyl booths, the same checkerboard floor, the same jukebox playing Springsteen at respectful volume. But something fundamental had shifted, like the moment after a storm when the light changes and everything looks possible again. I don't understand. Crawford gestured toward Danny, who was tracing the engraved names on his prosthetic with open reverence now, no longer hiding the gesture. This man saved 2 of my soldiers while losing his own leg. Today, a corporate auditor questioned whether he deserved a free cup of coffee. His voice carried the quiet rage of someone who'd spent decades defending people who couldn't defend themselves. I decided some things are more important than franchise profit margins. Alex emerged from the back room carrying a hand-carved wooden sign, letters painted in military gold. Danny's Corner, where heroes gather in peace. You didn't have to... Danny started. Yeah, I did. Sarah's voice was steady now, certain. You come here every Saturday, sit in that same booth, never ask for anything except coffee and quiet. You've earned a corner of the world where people treat you with the respect you deserve. Crawford handed Sarah a set of keys. New ownership papers Monday. Crawford Holdings maintains the building. You maintain operations. Your salary just tripled, and you run this place exactly how you see fit. Walsh approached hesitantly, corporate authority completely deflated. Ms. Mitchell, I wanted to apologize. I was following protocol, but... He struggled with words he'd never needed before. I was wrong. Those names, they're real people, aren't they? Sarah nodded. 8 soldiers who died for your right to question them. The morning sun had climbed higher, filling the diner with golden light that made the wall of honor glow like stained glass. Dozens of faces watched over the quiet miracle of wounded people healing each other with nothing more than presence and respect. Danny stood slowly, the prosthetic clicking against the floor, and walked to the new sign. He traced the words with one finger, "Where heroes gather in peace," then turned to face the room. 8 names, he said quietly, his voice carrying to every corner. 8 reasons I wake up every morning and keep walking forward. Sarah poured fresh coffee all around. To honor, she said simply. To honor, came the reply from every voice in the room. Outside, a new sign was being installed. Hometown Diner, independently owned. Veterans always welcome. Always honored. Some storms destroy everything. Others clear the air for something better to grow. If you typed honor earlier, thank you. And if this story moved you, please subscribe to remember what sacrifices must never be forgotten. We stand together, especially in silence. See you in the next one.